A&P, too much good stuff. Proud partner of the Golden State Warriors. Only 1,000 deals available on the A&PM app for 24 hours on a first-come, first-served basis between October 18, 2022 and April 10, 2023. Only at participating A&PM stores while supplies last.
Hot wings, hot and sour soup, and a hot fudge sundae. Your neighbor's DoorDash order for Golden State Warriors game days has gotten superstitiously specific. But hey, every order on DoorDash is a win for local businesses and Dashers. And if you're superstitious, it just might put the Warriors on a hot streak too.
Deep three on the way. Heat check.
Score one for the neighborhood on game day with DoorDash.
Heat check. Three.
Official partner of the Golden State Warriors.
Hey, Stephen Curry, it's game day, and you know what that means.
That you're going to talk like an announcer all day long?
Yes, and fans get 10% cash back in arena or online at Warriors Shop by using Rakuten.
That is pretty exciting.
Cash back on Warriors gear is exciting, Stephen Curry.
I think they know it's me.
Good point. We just need to tell them the website.
Rakuten.com/Warriors. RAKUTEN.com/Warriors.
You'd do anything for your pet. PetSmart can help. We make it easy to score food, treats, toys, collars, beds, and more. Whether you're on Team Dog, Team Cat, or even Team Reptile, Fish, or Small Pet, you can get what they need at PetSmart quickly and conveniently. Shop 1,600 stores, PetSmart.com, or the PetSmart app, and use Afterpay to shop now, pay later, in 4 interest-free installments. PetSmart. Anything for your pets. Afterpay terms and conditions apply. Visit PetSmart.com for details.
For Kia, the driveway is where performance resides. From the fans of the game to the Kia Telluride X Pro. So here's to tip-offs and engine starts, clutch players and 8-speed automatic transmissions, to long-range shooters and even longer-range rides. Here's to the legends of the driveway, the Kia Telluride X Pro. Kia is the official vehicle partner of the Golden State Warriors.
Kia, movement that inspires.
You've been listening to the Golden State Warriors Audio Network.
Presented by United Airlines.
This has been a presentation of Odyssey Sports. For even more coverage of your team, download the free Odyssey app and listen to your favorite stations, shows, and podcasts.
That's a wrap.
Yo, that's a wrap. It was an amazing experience. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope they got some laughs, some good entertainment.
This is Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Lee rips it through on the right side, stumbles with a dribble, runs into Curry, who ripped it away, pass to Poole, 3-on-2, Poole for 3 off the dribble, got it! It's madness at Chase Center. It's a 2-possession game with 1:28 to go.
The Warriors getting a stop there. Jordan Poole with the 3, 117 to 111. Phoenix at that point with 128 to go, but it was not enough as the Warriors found themselves down 27 to the injury-depleted and desperate for a victory Phoenix Suns tonight. They go on and lose this 125 to 113. As we welcome you inside Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. John Dickinson with you at 888-957-9570. That's the phone number to give me a call or shoot me a text here. Xfinity Mobile text line is open, and no way around it. That was awful. That is as bad a loss, and it's been a while since we've gone down this road, I think, because the Warriors have been so woefully shorthanded themselves at times over the course of the last month and a half that we kind of got away from the which game was the worst loss of the season. I think tonight you could make a case that this is the worst loss of the Warriors season. And the simple question, if you want to vent tonight at 888-957-9570, feel free, either via text or on the phone lines. I'm here for you tonight because tonight was supposed to be the ultimate get-right game for the Warriors. Stephen Curry back in the lineup for the first time since December the 14th in Indiana. Andrew Wiggins playing game 2. Hell, Klay Thompson was ready to roll after having to miss the game Saturday against the Magic. And the Warriors were looking to salvage the final game of an 8-game homestand where they won the first 5 and then ran out of gas a little bit, even more depleted by injury by game number 6 and 7 than they were at the beginning, and they started this homestand without Stephen Curry and Andrew Wiggins. Maybe they're two best, if not best, most consistent players when you throw Wiggins in there at the start of this thing. So it was all set up for the Warriors to get a nice bounce-back win, wipe the bad taste of the last 2 games out of their mouth, go +4 at 6-2 on the homestand to move from what would be 3 under 500 when it began, 15-18 back on Christmas night 2.5 weeks ago, to a game over 500 and now getting closer and closer to full strength. Let's see if they can translate this out onto the road. Well, it didn't happen. Warriors down 31-26 into the first quarter. Then they get outscored 28-19 in the second quarter, and the Warriors find themselves down 14 at the half, and it felt like they were lucky in a sense because they had made so many three-pointers early, 7 of 14 again, and they had done that a couple of different times on this homestand. But the Warriors hit some threes. They were closer than you thought they should be given their lackadaisical defense. Flat out, the Warriors treated tonight's game with their top 7 in the rotation back for the first time in a long time as if all they had to do was show up. And the Suns, didn't matter what they did because they were without 4 starters. They'd lost 6 in a row and 9 of their last 10. And the Warriors flat out didn't compete, didn't defend, and it looked like a Golden State Warriors team that felt like they could just show up. And that was all they needed to do. And maybe a big run here or there, hit some shots, and the Suns were just going to go off into the night without much fight, and the Warriors were just going to get this win. The Warriors played tonight, and their veterans played tonight because this is on the veterans. The young players, and Steve Kerr addressed this in his post-game press conference, the young players barely played tonight. And this felt to me like an early season Eastern Conference road game where the Warriors were just content to kind of go through the motions and you score, we'll score, and there's going to be a run coming at some point, and then the game is over. And you know what? If the Warriors hadn't gotten down 27, if they had only gotten down, say, 17 or so, they may have been able to win it with the Suns giving them every single opportunity in the fourth quarter to still somehow steal the game. I mean, the Suns were depleted. It was basically Mikal Bridges and the back end of the Suns roster tonight. Guys that hadn't been getting much opportunity, guys who don't play a lick if the Suns are even close to 500, and they were able to build that 27-point lead. Damian Lee, revenge game for him. Mikal Bridges ends up with 26. Damian Lee, 22 off the bench. Dwayne Washington Jr., young player getting an opportunity who can fill it up a little bit. He made 5 3-pointers in the game, and the Warriors just flat out were out-hustled in this one. And it in my estimation, was a worse loss than either of the last 2. Because you look at the Warriors, in particular in the Detroit game, and they got Wiggins back in the Orlando game, but lost Klay Thompson. I thought that one was weird off the jump. But to me, this loss, when you look at who the Suns brought in here to chase and the Warriors having their top 7, this loss is worse than any of the last 2. I don't care what the Suns' record is at this point. They'd lost 9 of the last 10. And so the Pistons and Magic at least had some young, athletic teams coming in here that, yes, rebuilding, but I think you could make a case on both of those nights because the Warriors were so injury depleted and clearly a little tired at the back end of this homestand that maybe on those nights in particular, believe it or not, the Magic and Pistons might have had more talented rosters on the floor compared to the Warriors. That was not the case tonight. That was absolutely not the case tonight. The Warriors had their top 7. The Suns were without 4 starters, and the Warriors flat out played like a team that wanted to coast in this one, and they got down 27 and then tried to flip the switch in the fourth quarter with some defense, with some full court pressure, with some hustle, and the Suns essentially playing without a point guard down the stretch, couldn't get the ball past half court half the time, opened the door pretty wide for the Warriors, who if they had been able to make some shots in the second half, and in particular the fourth quarter at a little bit of a higher rate, they hit a few, but also missed some wide open looks. If 1 or 2 more of those shots fall, maybe we are talking about the Warriors surviving this one and winning. But you add it all up, and it's a 125-113 victory for the Suns, and the Warriors reach the halfway mark of the season now at 20-21. So they come home 3 under. They will go back out on the road at 1 under and losers of 3 consecutive home games here inside Chase Center. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. It's John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Let's get it started with Zach on the phones here in San Francisco on 95.7 The Game. What's going on tonight, Zach?
What's up?
What's up, man?
I was at this game tonight. It was just piss poor, honestly.
Yes, it was. Thanks for the call. A man of brevity is Zach in San Francisco. We appreciate the call on that note. Look, I think tonight is more concerning than really anything we've seen at any point this season for the Warriors, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the Warriors, it was just, whether it's a lack of understanding as to how hard they have to work to win against anybody, you would think the last couple of games would have shown them that. But it just, whatever, not used to the margin for error being very much different to this point. To me, it's just concerning, and I'll say it, and I put it out on Twitter. I've been going back and forth with some of the hosts tonight and other colleagues. I think this is a bad homestand at 5-3. I really do. I think you go 5-0 and you're starting to get healthier toward the end of it and add players back. And really the tipping point, I thought, was tonight. Tonight needs to be a win. And if you get to 6-2, I think that is the line of delineation for good homestand, bad homestand when you look at the way that it started. You go 5-0 and then end up 5-3 playing the teams that you played at the back end. And again, I maintain tonight's the worst of all of them. Given, you look at Dwayne Washington, Bismack Biyombo, Dario Saric, Torrey Craig were 4 of the 5 stars. Jacques Landale, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie. That to lose that game in the fashion that the Warriors did and get down 27 in that game, it's just bad. It's just careless turnovers, poor defense, getting out hustled. And the reality is the Warriors are basically in the same position they were in before the homestand began. And now they find themselves having to go back out on the road and trying to work their way back into a little bit of contention in a Western Conference, to where they really missed an opportunity, I think, at this point to really already be basically in 5th or close to 4th in the West if they had been able to finish this thing off in the right way. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. I say it's a bad homestand. I know others have said in those that I have talked to tonight that they don't necessarily think that it's still not a terrible homestand, that the homestand overall was reasonable. So I've seen not terrible. I've seen reasonable. It does feel a little bit like you're trying to put lipstick on the old pig at that point to try and gloss this one up. But to me, the 5-0, how it starts does matter in terms of how it finishes. And look, I gave the Warriors a mulligan for the 2 L's because they were trying to work Wiggins back in, who clearly was out of sync. Wiggins was out of sync tonight. Curry was out of sync for 3 quarters tonight. I think, if you do want to put some positive spin on it for Curry and for Wiggins, it would be the fact that they did start to look more like themselves in the 4th quarter. But the flip side to that is the Warriors, another game where they expended a lot of energy to try and come back, and you give them credit for that, but it takes a toll. It's the old double negative, only this double negative doesn't add up to a positive. In a sense, you could make the case the Warriors for tonight would have been better off just going quietly into the night and losing by 20 rather than having the bunch of veteran players end up really grinding down the stretch in a game that you wind up getting no credit for. So we'll hear from Steve Kerr on that coming up here. We'll also hear from others in the Bill King interview room. But yeah, this is a bad loss that puts the Warriors, as they head back out on the road, in a position where I feel like everything is fragile again, and they haven't gotten off the hamster wheel of a few good games and then a few bad games. And look, you can't be 20-21 and say, hey, everything's fine, this team's going to make a run. No, at some point, they're going to have to actually make some kind of a run in the regular season to, at a minimum, in my mind, push themselves out of the play-in tournament glut and push themselves closer to the top half of that Western Conference bracket. Now, the good news is it's still extremely jumbled up, and the Warriors are only a couple of games off of that, but I feel like we keep kicking the can down the road. From the 3-7 start, when's it going to be? Plenty of time. It's early, only November. Then it's Christmas, and they have to kick it in gear on the homestand, and they're going to do it because they've been dominant at home. Well, guess what? They're not dominant at home anymore because they just took 3 losses when they hadn't had 3 all year, consecutively. And so I think this thing is right back to being fragile for the Golden State Warriors as they head for San Antonio tomorrow. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. About to get back to the phones here with Brian in San Francisco next on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on tonight, Brian?
Hey, man. How you doing tonight? I'm
doing all right tonight. I'm fired up tonight. I think this is a bad loss, man. I think it's a bad loss, and I think it makes it hard for me to call this homestand a good homestand.
I was listening to Steiny and Guru earlier, and Steiny was talking about how it's not going to happen, and Guru was like debating him, saying, "No, it's going to happen. No, it's going to happen." And the veterans are kind of tired. They're not in sync. I understand Steph coming off of like his injury, Wiggins being sick, having the flu or whatever, and Iggy just hasn't played. So I feel like tonight they should have still went with the young guys and had eased these guys in, but it's just all, Kuminga's boot. It's just like a bad season, and it's okay. I'm still a fan. I love him, but it's not going to be easy at the end. We might not. We might have just had our parade last year, and something different's going to happen this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of looking at it, Brian. And thanks for the call. And really tonight, the Warriors didn't really have the young players to play. I mean, Moses Moody, I guess, could have played, but you look at Kuminga, he's been out and is going to continue to be out. Wiseman is out now due to injury, so it wasn't going to be him tonight. And frankly, I mean, Anthony Lamb was bad tonight. They didn't get a lot from Ty Jerome tonight, but Ty Jerome's going to play less when you have your full complement of guards. Like we've talked about the fact that once it comes back to Steph and Clay and Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo, 4 guards is pretty much all you play. So that probably kicks Ty Jerome deeper into the back end of the rotation at that point in time. And so he's not going to play as much. Again, Lamb just didn't have it tonight. And you look at Jordan Poole, who found it in the second half and finished with 27, but he looked a little tentative in the first half and unsure of how he was trying to fit in. And he was also, again, to just be brutally honest, he was a turnstile defensively in this game. I mean, walk right by him. Draymond at times tonight, you could tell, didn't have the skip in his jump tonight. He didn't have the edge that we saw in those first 4 or 5 games of the homestand. And they just were disconnected. Anytime the Warriors take players away or add players back into the mix, it does typically take them a few games to get themselves back into a rhythm, all playing together and get that rust shaken off. But at the same time, you need to be able to play well enough to where you don't get down 27 to a Phoenix Suns team that's playing with one starter and the back half of their roster, and then that sets you up to lose this game. Like that to me is just inexplainable, frankly, when you have your 7 top players in your rotation. Mike in San Rafael is next here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Mike?
Hello, good evening. Just driving back from the game, and disappointing loss. I do think it was not a successful homestand. They really should have been 8-0. This should have been the toughest game if Phoenix was healthy, and they weren't. And with their away record as it currently is, I don't remember what it is, but it's so bad. They needed to win all 8 of these games, and so I think it's not. They looked very lost out there most of the game till the end. They didn't play like they were trying to win all game pretty much till the end, And like the one play at the end where not at the very end, but I didn't understand what Iguodala was doing when he threw the ball into the stands. I mean, he's a veteran, and he knows better that you get ejected if you do that. And it's not like he's a rookie. I thought that was stupid. I don't know. I can't see that as being something to motivate to get ejected. I think that was a mental error, like many mental errors tonight. Those are my thoughts.
Thanks for the call, Mike. I mean, when you go 5-0, you can make the case that you need to go 7-1 or 8-0 on the homestand. Now, I thought 8-0, and I thought even when they were 5-0 that 8-0 was probably going to be a tall ask. And, went back and forth with Steiny and producer Evan and, hey, all of these games are going to be hard. Well, tonight was the one where you get healthy enough to where you felt like it was going to be less hard compared to maybe some of the other ones. So you go 5-0, you got to at least get to 6. And really probably 7. Like, I'll hear you on that. If you think 8, and by the way, the road record's 3-16. So now 17-5 home, 3-16 on the road. And they're going to have to play better on the road. And every game you don't win is 2 games at some point that you have to make up if you want to get back over 500. So 888-957-9570. As far as Iguodala goes, before we get to some more phone calls here, yeah, it's just bad. And I couldn't tell initially what happened. I guess they didn't initially show a replay on the broadcast, but he threw the ball into the stands is what it sounds like happened, and that is an automatic ejection. And so, I mean, Iguodala, I know Steve Kerr's going to disagree with me when we play his post-game press conference. I think Iguodala, for the most part, has been a 0 in 2 games. And if he's going to be taking up a roster spot, he's going to have to be somebody that's making more of an impact on the game than we've seen him make in his limited time on the floor to this point. I know the Warriors love him. I know they're hoping that they're doing it a little bit differently this year to where he can be a help in the postseason, and I think maybe they're even holding out that he can be the key veteran wing player that can help him get over the top in a playoff type series. Because they are shorthanded in terms of not having Otto Porter and Gary Payton II and some other young players that I don't think they're necessarily going to trust over the long haul of a playoff series. So I think they're hoping Iguodala can do more of what he did at the beginning of last year, at the end of this year, and on into the playoffs. But they love him. He knows the secret sauce. The vets love him. I think there is tremendous value as far as just his presence around, but at some point, it's got to be beyond the presence around. It's got to be helping a team on the floor. Otherwise, you got to find some players that actually can help you on the floor. And to throw the ball out of bounds in a moment of frustration. And I think that's another big takeaway from the Warriors tonight is how frustrated they were. Like it looked at different points as if they were trying to turn it on and then couldn't turn it on. And then by the time they did, they were down 27, and it wound up still not being nearly enough. So 888-957-9570. Let's keep it rolling here. It's John Dickinson on Warriors Wrap-Up. Warriors lose to the Suns 125-113. And we move now to David in Lafayette on 95.7 The Game. Hey, David.
Hey, John. So I'm just coming back from the game, too. I agree with you 100%. I think it was actually their worst loss of the year. I mean, it's just an opportunity completely wasted. But, basically they could not control the inside at all. They're playing with a tiny lineup. About 30 minutes of the game, Wiggins or Klay Thompson is the power forward with Draymond at center. So they got Kuminga, they got Green, they got Wiseman all sitting on the bench. They can help on the interior somewhat, but none of those guys are really a solution to give them an interior presence. They have to trade for somebody to play on the inside because they just could not do anything inside. They got out-rebounded so badly. At critical moments, they lost offensive rebounds, and they just have no interior presence. Looney's great when he's on the floor, but he's a 20-minute guy. If they have Looney, they can't have both Iguodala and Green because then you have 3 guys that won't shoot. So they really have to get some help, I think. Either that or they're going to save a lot of money next year.
Well, thanks for the call. And it is tricky because they did get beat up and 20 offensive rebounds for the Suns and some critical ones in moments where the Warriors are trying to come back, and that typically happens when the defense is flying around trying to get stops. You get out of position, and the offense is able, if they're aggressive enough, to go get it, and size is part of that as well. And the Warriors have made no bones about the fact that they prefer in the biggest moments to play smaller and to have their smaller players play bigger and really collectively make up for the fact with their speed and their ability to guard up a position from maybe their height and also to collectively rebound and keep teams from really hammering them the way that the Suns did tonight at times. And I wonder how much, though, a big man would really help this Warriors team if a big man isn't going to play on this Warriors team. And that's the thing I keep coming back to. There are individual games in the regular season where you could say, hey, a big man here or there would help the Warriors. But over the big picture, grand scheme, I just don't see how that player would be playing in a finishing lineup. Like, they're not going to put Jakob Poeltl in with Draymond Green on the floor with Wiggins and Steph and Clay down the stretch in a game, because they're going to want to have another wing player out there and have Draymond playing center and have him and Curry, trying to cook the opposing defense who maybe is playing a big, and you'll out hustle them and out athlete them to some of those rebounds. So it's not as simple, I think, David, as just finding a big. It's one of those things that might help you more get through the regular season. And I respect that, than it would be to be a position where you're trying to get somebody that's going to be able to contribute in the postseason. Duck Sauce is next in San Jose on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Duck Sauce?
Hey, JD. Always good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, you too, my man.
I agree with you tonight. I totally agree with you tonight. Probably one of the most alarming losses of the year. This has to be a win. I mean, like you said, it was Mikal Bridges and not even their second string. I mean, that was their third string out there. And, they've lost 9 of their last 10 or whatever. I mean, there's just no excuse for that. I mean, they blew our doors off. It wasn't just a loss. I mean, cosmetically, that fourth quarter made it look better than it even was. One other big concern I've noticed the last couple games, just how old and slow we look. I really feel like we're having trouble turning the corner on guys. We're not getting to the rim. And, essentially it's just getting swung around the perimeter till a contested three is taken. And that just concerns me. So totally agree with you. This is a low point. And, hopefully I'm just upset, man. But hopefully, look forward to hearing you on Saturday morning. Hopefully we're in a better mood by then. But, that's all I got. Thanks, JD.
Thanks, Duck Sauce. No, this is a tough one, I think, for Warrior fans to be able to swallow. And yeah, the Warriors didn't attack inside really until the second half. I mean, it was too late. I mean, and I think some of it was they had success shooting threes, 7 of the first 14, but then you wind up, I think, 11 of your last 34 as the night goes on, and it ends up 18, which is a nice total of 48. 37.5%, but after the hot start, and they were still down, by the way, even though they were knocking down a 50% clip at 7-14, even though they were still down, they were able to they cooled off from that point. And so they needed some makes down the stretch that weren't coming, and they do have to be, I think the way the Suns were defending them, also, you have to take it to the basket. And we've seen the Warriors do that in playoff series where they'll take it to the basket. They'll hammer it to the basket. They'll get after teams that way, get to the free throw line. I thought the Warriors stayed in the game to a certain extent at times tonight by getting to the free throw line. But you look at it, top to bottom, and it's got to be better than it was tonight, given the opponent. And given the situation where this team really through the first 5 games of this homestand, they were telling us that they believed that all of these games were important, were necessary, had to be wins, that it was go time. And I feel like they lost the rope a little bit over the course of the last 3 games of this homestand. And understandable if you look at the fact that they were more depleted with Kuminga going out and Wiseman going out, who was starting to be a part of things. But then you get Wiggins back. Throw out the first game, he was rusty. Out of sync tonight with Curry. coming back at least initially. But again, tonight was almost the game where you bring Curry back and you try to get everybody to shake all the rust off, but you do it tonight before you go on the road so you can still win the game even though you don't play well. Like tonight, like to me, that was the worst case scenario for the Warriors tonight was, hey, you're still going to win the game even if you do play poorly, but they just played so poorly and in ways where they just couldn't defend, and then the athleticism was a problem late. They couldn't make a big shot when they would get a big stop, and you add it all up, and it winds up being, I think, one of the more confounding and disappointing losses of the entire year. 888-957-9570. John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Suns 125, Warriors 113. So the Suns get beat, or the Warriors get beat by the Suns now for a third time in 3 meetings on the season, as these two teams are going to play one more time here between now and the end of the year. Let's go ahead and hear a couple of minutes of Steve Kerr as he addressed the media. We'll come back. We'll get some text messages as well. But here is the head coach of the Warriors as he met with the media inside Chase Center tonight.
Steve, what's your assessment of how Steph looked tonight?
Steph looked really good in the second half. He found his legs underneath him and had to feel the game out for a while. And obviously coming off that kind of absence, it's going to take some time. But I thought he found something in the second half.
You guys really kind of cranked it up defensively in the fourth, pressed them, and got back in the game. And I know obviously you can't do that all game, but why do you think it took so long to get any type of defensive juice out there?
Yeah, I mean, I take responsibility for that. I clearly didn't have our guys ready to play, and that's my fault. I've got to do a better job of giving them the slap in the face that Phoenix gave us, in the first quarter. Like these games are always go like this. A team's got a bunch of starters out, and then all the guys who normally don't play much, they can't wait to get out there. A guy like Saric comes out and just kicks our butt. And these are all NBA players. These guys, are all great players. This is the league. There's no easy days in the league. So I think the combination of, that dynamic and then, us getting some guys back and trying to find our rhythm, it really got us off to a slow start. But I did like the fact that we competed in that fourth quarter and fought like crazy, because sometimes in this league, you forget how hard it is to win a game. It's really hard to win an NBA game. And the difference between winning and losing is like that. It's, one team has the edge emotionally, like Phoenix did, and they set a tone right away. That's all it takes. They made 14 threes and got 20 offensive rebounds because they were the more aggressive team, the more confident team. So I'm hoping that that fourth quarter was the team that I have come to know and love and recognize. But we have to show that in the first quarter, not in the fourth quarter. And it's my job to try to get that out of them.
You mentioned Steph getting his legs back there in the second half. I know Jordan hasn't missed games like Steph, but did you sense him getting something going, certainly end of the third and then into the fourth quarter? Clearly the buckets happened too, but did you see him?
Yeah, Jordan was great in the second half. The first half, we didn't have anything going, but I didn't like the level of competition. I didn't like the looks on our faces, the body language. I felt like we were all sort of feeling sorry for ourselves in that first half. And the second half, we just started playing and started competing and got out of our own heads and committed to each other, committed to the game. And I know it was too little, too late, but that's what it takes. And we've had this weird stretch with no Wiggs, no Steph. We've hung in there. Our bench guys have done a great job of hanging in there, but we're not a team that's in rhythm right now as a result. And part of finding a rhythm is just competing. And we didn't do that for such a long stretch in the game that we didn't have enough time to come back and win.
You go with Iguodala to start the fourth. I know he got the stint in the first quarter. What was the reasoning there? And I imagine he gave you exactly what you were looking for there.
Yeah, I mean, Andre is, he's so good defensively, so good moving the ball. He's just, got an intelligence about him, and there's a connection with Andre, with the guys when he's out there, and we needed that connection. And I thought he played really well when he was out there and helped spark that run.
We saw Wiggins battling with Landale and then like the spear and the full court press. Do you think that kind of got some juices going for him? Because he looked to be rusty since he's got back.
Yeah.
That was good defense.
Yeah, Wiggs was really rusty the other night and in the first half. And I just think the level of ball pressure and intensity that he showed in the second half, especially in late third or I guess fourth quarter, that's who we need him to be. And that's who he was in the playoffs last year. And coming off this long layoff, he hasn't looked right until that fourth quarter. And so I actually told the coaches, I think this could be a good thing for us. Honestly, you need to get a wake-up call. You need to be reminded how hard it is to win. And you need to understand the level of commitment to each other, to the game that it takes to win a title. Our vets know that. Our young guys are still learning all that. But hopefully this is the jolt that we need to get ourselves going, because this first half of the season has been full of stops and starts.
And Steve, do you feel like the double overtime game had any effect on your guys' energy levels past couple games?
No.
Did you see the Iguodala ejection play? Is it just he threw it out? Did you see any of that?
I didn't see it.
And was it explained to you?
No, I didn't get an explanation. Carl Lane called it, and he was on the other side of the floor, and I never got an explanation from him as to why he called it. So I guess I'll find out tomorrow.
When it comes to, you were just talking about with the younger guys, there aren't any easy games. There's no, you guys have been start and stop at the same time though, all season long. Do you think there was any maybe assumption or just kind of expectations from less experienced guys that, okay, yeah, Steph's back. Okay. Yeah, Andrew's back. We're getting back. So it should just click right away and kind of just take the energy.
I don't know that, that was the case. I mean, we didn't play young guys tonight. Our young guys are either hurt. Moses didn't get on the floor. PBJ didn't get on the floor. James and JK are injured. So we played our vets tonight. To me, this was, as I said, my first comments, combination of letting our guard down because Phoenix had so many guys out, and then being out of whack, out of rhythm because of the absences and the guys trying to find their footing. But as I said, the only way you can get through that is to compete, and we didn't start competing until it was too late.
Yeah, the Warriors have to compete better, and I think that's the biggest disappointment on a night like tonight. And I think it makes it a bad homestand, the fact that the Warriors treated tonight like all they had to do was show up. And you can say Jordan Poole figured it out down the stretch, and Andrew Wiggins knocked the rust off. Same for Steph Curry. But you needed to be able to do all of that if you were going to do it and not get down 27 to a team playing with one starter out of 5 and the back third, basically, of their roster. And to where you're fighting the uphill climb, you're expending all kinds of energy late to try and salvage a game that frankly should have been taken care of to begin with a lot earlier. And I understand it if you get down. Like, I understand if you get down, there's a little lull at the beginning of the game, but you got to be able to keep it close enough to where you do make your run. And I think we all knew the run was coming at some point, that the run doesn't push it from 27 down to about 10 or 9, briefly. You want that run to go from maybe 15 to a point where you're tied or you're ahead in a game. And the Suns were looking to crumble. They really were. I mean, the talent level that they were putting out there, they were looking to crumble in this thing. But the Warriors just wouldn't let them, frankly, at different points. And they go on to win it 125-113. So I thought it was interesting. Steve Kerr did say that he thinks that this could be a wake-up call, but I feel like it's been a first half full of potential wake-up calls for the Warriors. I mean, they get off to the 3-7 start. At that point, you look at some of the losses in that group, and it just shouldn't have been as bad as it was for the Warriors at that point. A lot of close games they let get away late. Then they make a conscious effort to fight back, 10-4 to get to 13-11, but I thought they let the game against Indiana slip in this building. They let the game against Utah get away where they give up the 4-point lead in the final 13 seconds. That turns into a loss when it looked like it was going to be one of their bigger wins of the year. And then the injuries pile up. And so you're going to take some losses at that point that are going to put you behind the 8 ball a little bit coming home. But the disappointing aspect of it, top to bottom, is the Warriors showed ultra competitiveness at the beginning of this homestand. You knew they would bring that against Memphis because they frankly hate Memphis. They respect them, as Klay Thompson said, but they can't stand them. And so they brought that kind of level of play into the game, and then they did it again and again and again because they had to, shorthanded against some teams that could beat them if they didn't, and would have beaten them more easily if they didn't. But the Warriors won all those games, hit a wall. But tonight needed to have, with the opportunity to at least finish with a win and finish with your top 7 intact. Tonight needed to be more of the crazy competitiveness that we saw in the first 3 or 4 or 5 games of the homestand. There was a refuse to lose component to the Warriors against the Grizzlies, against Charlotte when it got tight late, against Utah and Portland when it was tight late and you had to come back in the fourth quarter with big defense, as the Warriors tried to do in this game tonight. If you play with that spirit throughout the course of the ball game tonight, you wind up winning this game. I think with your run in the fourth quarter, as the Warriors were able to win this game with their run in some other fourth quarters. They just let it get too far gone to a point where even when they came back, it just was not going to be meant to be. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. I say a bad homestand. What say you? You can't go 5-0 and then end up 5-3. You can't return home off of that road trip under 500, leave again to go on another 5-game road trip, which begins Friday in San Antonio, and still be below 500 and be able to claim, hey, it was a good homestand. I think it's missed opportunities. I think this loss tonight was worse than the Detroit or Orlando losses. And I think, it really is more concerning, I think, than anything we've seen to this point this season. I'll also take it a step further. The Warriors are still under 500, as I just mentioned. They could have separated. They could have, with another win or two, been essentially 5th or maybe even pushing 4th in the Western Conference. Now they got to go out on the road, and they've got to work harder on the road as a 3-16 team on the road. They're going to have to work harder to win on the road. And, I'll be honest in looking at this trip. The Spurs game is going to take more energy than a normal Spurs game would because it's going to be in the Alamo Dome, nationally televised with 55 to 60,000 people there. Like, that game is going to have a very different feel compared to a normal Friday night, nobody's paying attention game at the AT&T Center against a team that has one of the worst rosters in the NBA. And let me tell you, if you lose at home to who the Suns put out there tonight, you can lose on the road with 60,000 in the Alamo Dome on Friday, especially when you come into it already a 3-16 team. Like, that's point blank, bottom line there. And then you've got, after that, you've got a back-to-back. And again, you're going from San Antonio to Chicago. So you're going from way down south up north to the Midwest, and you're playing an afternoon game on Sunday against the Bulls. So you're playing an afternoon game Sunday. You've got a back-to-back, but it's back-to-back afternoon games. So you're going Chicago to D.C., You're playing in D.C., second of a back-to-back Monday on the MLK holiday, and then you stay over in Washington because you're going to the White House to be honored for winning the NBA championship last year. That's what Tuesday is before you end up going to Boston. And then if that trip hasn't been taxing enough to that point, even that was the easy part of the trip. That was the fun part of the trip. That was the most winnable games portion part of the trip. Then you go to Boston against a Celtics crowd that is going to be in a froth on Thursday, and then the second of a back-to-back and the 5th game in what will be 8 nights at Cleveland, a team that's been top 4 in the Eastern Conference for the better part of this season. That's how you end it before you head home and you take on Brooklyn for the next little home stretch here to close out the back end of January. So you're going to have to work harder. And while I think the Warriors believe if they're full strength, they're going to get on some kind of a run here, this road trip is laid out a little bit differently than a lot of road trips typically are, with the way that, again, 2 more back-to-backs, but you've got a couple of days in between, but then you've got what should be a real nice event at the White House, but also just another thing that you got to do that takes a toll as you push forward over now the back half of the season beginning here coming up in a couple of days. All right, we're going to hear from Jordan Poole first. Let's get some business and hear quickly from Steve Kerr as he gives our station ID.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app.
And we appreciate everybody watching on Twitch and YouTube here on 95.7 The Game. All right, let's go ahead and hear a couple of minutes of Jordan Poole. We'll also hear from Klay Thompson as the Warriors lose this one to the Suns, 125-113. Here's JP.
Jordan, what do you think changed for you guys, like late third quarter? Obviously, most of the first 3 quarters didn't go so well. What happened to kind of get things going for you and for the team?
We just played a bit more aggressive. We tried to put ourselves in the situation to win. Came out with more energy in the second half. Just got to find ways to start the game like that.
How is it different for you? You know, you started the last 17 games, and this is the first time you came off the bench in that span. I mean, how do you approach the game maybe differently? It seemed like you got off to a slower start.
I mean, obviously, be ready, be prepared for whatever opportunity you get. I mean, just go out there, play my game. Try to put my teammates in situations to be successful, no matter who I'm out there on the court with. Got to pick times to be aggressive. It all depends on the tempo of the game, the momentum of the game. All of those things go into account, especially when you're coming in after seeing like the first 6 minutes or so, see how they're guarding, see how they're playing, and just adjust to it and just try to make an impact whenever given the opportunity.
Is there any difference in the way you approach your game? Like tonight, you weren't starting before you were starting. I mean, you've experienced this already before, but is there any difference in your approach when you're changing like that in the lineup?
Not necessarily in my approach, but I mean, when you start and you come in, you kind of get to feel the game out a little bit more, figure out how they're guarding you, figuring out the rotations, the coverages, right? You get all game to kind of figure that out. See different pictures. Coming off the bench, you kind of get to see it a little bit earlier, see how they're guarding you, and then play into the rhythm, play into the momentum of the game. Depending on when you come in, depending on what our team needs, is what you can bring forward, whether it's scoring, whether it's being aggressive, whether it's getting your teammates involved, whether it's getting ball movement, it's all different. So just trying to figure it out. It's a learning process.
Steve made a point of, there weren't young guys playing tonight. It was all more experienced, more veteran players. But still, how is it trying to readjust to having Steph and then also Andrew as well back out on the court after not having the 2 of them out there?
Yeah, even Andre came back. We got 3 new guys who haven't played in quite some time, and Andrew and Steph were playing at an extremely high level before they had some time off, and it'll take probably a couple of games for those guys to get going and playing at the highest level again. But that just comes with it after not getting any game reps over a couple of weeks. But we've all played with each other before. We know what everybody's strengths are, and we'll put the pieces together.
My second question is, you guys started this homestand 5-0. Has there been a kind of common denominator, common thread over these past 3 games that may have turned the tides to close out this homestand?
Not sure.
Jordan, what about this Suns team has been so difficult for you guys to figure out this season?
Not sure.
You guys are at the halfway mark of your season. Just how would you assess how it's gone so far?
We're 20-21, and we need to string some wins together. Luckily, we got 5 wins at home not too long ago. We just got a couple guys coming back, and these guys have been there before, and we know what it takes to win. So we'll apply that, and it's about time to start winning some games.
Steve said he hoped that this would be a wake-up call for you guys to be reminded just how hard it is to win in this league. Do you guys view this loss as like a wake-up call?
Yes. There was a lot of good teams in the league. It's a tough league. That's why it's the best league in the world, and no game is given night in and night out, no matter who's out there playing. And I think they did a good job of showing that tonight. But we just got to find ways to win games. We will. It takes a little bit of time. But I think it's about time for us to flip the switch for sure.
It without a doubt, it's about time for the Warriors to get this thing together and flip the switch. There's no question about it. And now they're going to have to do it on the road where they're 3-16 in the first 19 games. And so I maintain, while yes, the rust was apparent, and the starters getting everybody back and having the top 7 is a good thing. And I did make note earlier, as Patrick so kindly did on Twitter as well, the fact that when you get a couple of players in the rotation, it throws the rhythm off and it takes the Warriors a few games. This has happened even with the best iterations of this Warriors team. It takes a few games, but when you're 20-21, and not 30-11, as the Warriors were last year, or even 23-18, you can't afford to just take L's here and there to get everybody right. This team needs to win. And I've said this a lot. You can't be a game or two under 500 and tell me everything's fine, still champs. At some point, this year's team, has to get on a run to show that they're capable of being good and going on a run. If this team does make a run in the playoffs, we're going to look back at some point, January, February, March, April, and say, okay, that they showed over this stretch, X, Y, or Z, with everybody on this current roster, that they're capable of doing that. They did that last year when they were 18-2, when they were 30-9, when they were 41-13. This team hasn't really sniffed that at any point. 10-4, 10-4 is that's a 14-game sample. I'm talking about 20-game samples. We're talking about 39-game samples. We're talking about a 55-game sample last year before they coasted down the stretch and were healthy or weren't healthy up until the playoffs started. And then they got everybody back, and then they got on a run, and all the pieces fit. By the way, that team had better veteran glue pieces in Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. that this team flat out just doesn't have. Spare me the Anthony Lamb, Ty Jerome, talk. Spare me the Jonathan Kuminga is going to be the defensive stopper the way Gary Payton II was. Maybe, but he's going to have to prove it, and he hasn't been able to prove it over a lengthy stretch to this point in time. All right, let's hear a little bit from Klay Thompson as he met with the media. Klay was hot early, finished with 29, 6 of 14 from 3, but unfortunately another really good Klay game offensively that ends up being an L for the Warriors in this one. Here's a couple of minutes of Klay.
Why do you think you guys just kind of didn't have it defensively for first few quarters?
I'm not sure, but maybe with Steph and Wiggs coming back, we probably relax a little bit more than we should because we thought, just showing up, maybe we get the dub. But I love the intensity we play with towards the end. And you know what? Sometimes you need a loss like this to remind yourself how hard it is to win in this league. And I think we could turn it into a positive.
That run you guys made in the fourth was just a matter of, okay, we have to dial this up here.
I think it was a combination of a few things, probably just great effort and intensity and just being the more aggressive team.
You guys started this homestand on a 5-game winning streak and then lost the last 3. I mean, can you find a pulse on anything that's shifted in these 3 most recent games that maybe you had in those first 5?
To be honest, not really. But we're halfway through the regular season. We are one game below 500, which is not ideal, but we know it can be turned around. And it's going to take a collective effort from every individual on this team. So we just got to go on this road trip with the same intensity we play with at the end of the game, and I know we'll come out with a great record.
What happened when you got that technical foul? What caused that, or what happened out there?
Might have said a bad word along with the line. It was a bad call, but what can you do? I just did not agree with the call, and I let it be known.
Draymond has said before, he doesn't care where you guys end up in the standings. Are you concerned about the standings as the team?
We would like to be as high as possible, but what's more important than that is being 100% healthy and whole and clinching, obviously, a playoff spot anywhere. I mean, we know how to win on the road. We know how to win a championship, so it's about putting ourselves in position to be in peak physical form. And hopefully before that comes, just getting a great rhythm offensively and be very tight-knit defensively, and we can get it done.
You were out there for some of the time when Andre was in the fourth quarter. Definitely seemed like he was a big part of that. What was that like to see Andre in the middle of things again and kind of
so great to see Andre out there. He's done so much for this franchise. He's been such a great veteran to everybody, and it was just a pleasure to see him out there in the uniform of the Warriors. Anytime he's out there, that number 9 is special for a franchise, and it was great to see him out there competing.
Yeah, great to see Iguodala out there competing, and again, his talents and his ability to help this thing higher value clearly among the coaching staff and the players. So I'm going to roll with them on that. But I thought getting ejected from the game in the manner that he got ejected from the game, that's pretty weak sauce if you ask me. But again, I'll defer to the champions and the coaching staff as far as it goes with Iguodala. And his benefit to this team. Most prevalent point for Klay Thompson, and he said it right out of the chute, that they let up a little bit. Getting Steph back and having Wiggins for a second straight game, looking across and seeing the fact that Phoenix had so many players out. They let up, they got down 27, and they couldn't overcome it. And now they find themselves, because of that, at 20 and 21. I do agree with Klay in the sense that being healthy and whole is important. But here's the thing. You were healthy minus Dante DiVincenzo the first 10 games, and you were 3-7. You were healthy tonight. You had your top 7, and I know there was rust involved. You lost tonight to a team. You didn't lose tonight to Memphis. You didn't lose tonight to Boston. You lost tonight to a team that had one starter and the back half of their roster that hadn't won a game or had won one game in about 3 weeks. Like that is a bad sign for this team at this point. But, the Warriors are going to have to, and I will read this text here from the 240. JD, the game is played on the court, bro. Ain't no telling what will happen in the next 5 games. Relax. We will be fine. Looking ahead to San Antonio. Look, and 541 asking about Kuminga as well. Kuminga has really helped the Warriors maybe more. I mean, Kuminga would be the one player that, he could have helped tonight for sure. He could have helped with the athletic Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons teams. I don't think there's much doubt about it. But you start looking ahead, you can't relax with this team on the road. They've won 3 road games all year. You're telling me they're just going to go snap their fingers and win 3 games on the road? I think if they had won tonight, it would have been kind of go time. They got to prove it at this point. And we'll talk about it over the course of the next couple of days. But let's be honest. The Warriors at this point. Do you feel better about the Warriors going on the road and winning 3 right now, given the fact that they only have 3 road victories total on the season, or do you feel like it would be more likely that they'd go lose in San Antonio in front of 55,000 fans? At this point, who the heck knows? And again, I'm just telling you, that trip, at some point, look, the Warriors are capable of winning any game, especially when they're whole, but at some point you got to go out and you got to show that you can do it, and you can do it even as you expend the energy that it takes to do it and keep doing it over and over and over, because that ultimately, and we'll close it out on this note, the bottom line is, could the Warriors be a 7 seed or an 8 seed and win a play-in game and get into the tournament, and, they're the 7 seed and they're playing Denver, and they'd love that matchup. And maybe they're able as a 7 seed to upset Denver. And then it's like, all right, who you playing then? Are you playing? Oh, you're playing Dallas, so you can beat Dallas. And then, to me, it's not so much can you win a series or can you even win 2 series as an underdog. It's can you win 4 series as an underdog, playing extra games, because you probably will play extra games if you're going to be starting these series on the road. To me, the path is too close to being right there in front of them, with, frankly, West being mediocre at this point. It's too close to being right there to where, to me, they have to take, if they can't take it this year as far as working their way back up into the top 4, then to me, that's a sign that they don't have it when it comes to playoff time. And again, not that they can't win a playoff series or 2. I think they absolutely could and probably even would make a run. It's, can you win a championship doing that with this roster? And we may look back now, as much as we don't want to admit it, we may look back later and go back to now and say, you know what, the Warriors were really telling us all along that maybe they didn't have it in this current iteration. But it remains to be seen. And the Warriors can still flip everything around in the second half, and maybe come the middle of April, we're talking about a team that is still, top 4 in the Western Conference, and we'd be feeling very, very different about where this team is at that point. All right, we'll close it out on that note. Appreciate everybody, all the phone calls, all the text messages. That'll do it as we'll end the night there. Thanks to Sterling Bennett. Thanks to everybody in our San Francisco studios for cutting up the highlights of the post-game sound. I'm John Dickinson. Look for a new Warriors Weekly podcast with my guy Matt Steinmetz and myself. Should drop tomorrow around noon, and then I'll be back with you on Friday for Warriors wrap-up after the Warriors take on the San Antonio Spurs. Damon and Ratto are going to have Warriors Live for you at 4 o'clock for that, 3:30 for that one. Warriors Live. That's a 4:30 early tip from San Antonio and the Alamo Dome. And then due to the 49ers game, Warriors this week's going to get pushed to Sunday. So stay tuned for that here on 95.7 The Game. That'll do it. We'll talk to you on Friday night as the Suns beat the Warriors tonight, 125-113. You heard it right here on 95.7 The Game.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.